Now, in today's session, we have another focus, and that is how our worldview affect the process of development. Now, this worldview may be very new to some of us. We are going to discuss it a little bit. For example, to begin with, let's reflect on 2 points. How do people commonly view life to be? So our worldview also relates to our view about life. And then secondly, how do their views, the views of the people about life, influence their human relations and the relationships with the environment? That is how our worldview influences our view about life, influences the relationship we have with others, and the relationship we also have with the environment around us. Now we need to reflect about this. So by considering the widening divide in the world today among the people, new types of divides are also coming. It's clear that the present order in the world is very defective. That results into so much of divides and divisions among the people. Something is fundamentally wrong. And that requires fundamental changes in the views of the world about life and the relationship among the people and the societies. With the present views which are prevailing among the people are mostly based on materialistic consideration of life. For example, wealth and power. These are 2 things that very much occupy the mind of every other person. These have resulted into social and economic disparities and destruction of the environmental resources because of that view. The image we can use is a crumbling old building, old edifice that cannot be repaired. The world has become like that. It's crumbling down. The only way is to build a new one in its place. Secondly, as discussed earlier, the noble nature of man and his potential that is far superior to animals, it's very important we distinguish between the potential that man has and the animals have. That potential should be considered while planning development. So it's not just physical body of man, but the potential that man has. But somehow whenever we talk of development and society building, we consider only the animal side of human nature, his selfishness, egocentricness, cruelty, greed. Now it's believed that we need to learn how to channel selfish desires for the collective good. All right, so there are selfish desires, but then how do you channelize it to result into collective good? And the difficulty is that a new world order should be built by men and women who are born in the present order and carry the seers and prayers of it. None of us have the experience of that wonderful world order which we are talking about to establish. We are the products of the present world of disparities and materialistic perspectives. So, of course, our task then becomes more difficult. Let's look at some statistics of the first decade of the 21st century. There's some not very good information it contains. These are statistics that emerge from the recent studies conducted by international organizations are a testimony to the consequences of these disparities, that is because of the materialistic worldview that we have. See, the poorest 40% of the world's population account only for 5% of the global income. 40%, they get 5% of the global income, while the richest 20% account for 75% of it. It's great disparity. according to the UNICEF, about between 26,500 to 30,000 children die every day as a result of poverty. Can you believe it? Every day. And these are statistics of a number of years ago. They die quietly in some of the poorest villages on earth, far from the security and awareness of the people of the world. Nobody even comes to know. As these children are basically weaker and weaker in life, their death goes unnoticed. There are more statistics in your study material. I invite you to go through to get a little bit really more shock of the situation. Now, this background of the vast and devastating poverty among millions of the world population stands the stark reality of overindulgence and excess in non-essential spending by others. On the one hand, we have extreme poverty. On the other, we have overindulgence in material life, excessive expenditure that are not for essential aspects of life, from which the poor are deprived. This has increased immensely over the past decade also. So look at some figures which are from 1998, now almost 25 years ago. Very shocking. It says cosmetics in the United States, the expenditure per year, how much do you think it should be people spend on cosmetics? $8 billion. Converted to rupees, mind-boggling. Expenditure on ice creams in Europe. One ice cream, what difference does it make? Yeah, it's like that. In Europe, annually, the people spend $11 billion on ice cream. Perfumes in Europe and United States, $12 billion. We can keep on going on pet food and entertainments and cigarettes and alcoholic drinks and narcotics. And of course, the highest figure is about military spending worldwide, which was $780 billion those days. Now, in contrast to these expenditure, now look at what was necessary additional cost for universal access by everybody, including the 40% poor of the world, to have access to basic social services in all the developing countries during the same period. Now see, basic education for all, we needed only $6 billion. Water and sanitation for all, $9 billion. Reproductive health for all the women, $12 billion. Basic health and nutrition, $13 billion. These figures sound very similar to the amounts that the world has been spending on non-essentials, on entertainment, on ice creams, and so on and so forth. In 1998, the combined expenses of just 3 items in the first list, that is ice cream, perfumes, and pet foods in Europe and US, would have been sufficient to wipe out the deficit of the 4 global priorities, equivalent to $40 billion. According to the Millennium Development Goals, these 4 priorities: basic education for all, water and sanitation, reproductive health for women, and basic health for all. The same amount, that is the $40 billion, was only 10% of the sale of narcotic drugs used worldwide. Only 10% of that. And just over 5% of the global military spending. these shocking expenses for destructive goals, seen in the light of the desperate need for education and saving lives, health, was an indication of actually the spiritual poverty, the moral poverty of our materialistic world. A decade later, that is by 2008, these figures had greatly increased, emphasizing the serious conflict between the number of goods people want to consume or possess and what they really need to sustain their day-to-day lives. Imagine some people want to sustain their life just to live, and some people on the other side want to consume and possess goods more and more. Almost the same amount of money required. So you have a learning activity at this time to do. You will find the latest statistics on similar points with respect to India, and discuss with your learning partner how material worldview has led to environmental destruction. Now we discussed about really the sufferings of the people, and now you also see how materialistic worldview has affected the environmental destruction. And then also inequality between rich and poor. And then the development of technology for war. How our views, worldviews, have to change if we have to fix these problems. Thank you.